I have this weed problem. It seems to happen every year. Apparently, you're supposed to cut them. Otherwise, they just keep getting bigger. My neighbor has this mower that should hook right up to my tractor using the 3-point hitch. And it's powered by the PTO, the power takeoff. But there's a problem. It doesn't work. It actually doesn't even turn. It's completely seized up. And I suspect that's got something to do with the abundance of oil down here and the scarcity of oil up here in the gearbox. So the input shaft does turn, but the vertical shaft, she's seized right up. So I'm guessing all the oil leaked out the seal in the bottom, and then some of the bearings got toasty and seized up, and then who knows what kind of carnage we're going to find associated with that. Never worked on one of these, but I'd rather be beaten with a sock full of pennies than cut weeds by hand. So let's see what we can do. Probably should have pressure washed it before we started this. Oh well, if I did that, what would people tell me in the comments? Oh, come on. Wish it would just break off and we get this over with. Oh. So they're actually carriage bolts. You got a square. Okay, well there's one. Oh gosh. Oh, look at that. Oh, there we go. It's waiting for that to happen. So the carriage bolt cammed out. Trying to avoid using the torch because this is like a perfect recipe for a fire. But I don't know if we're gonna have a choice. Sockets are working good though. These are the rocket sockets as recommended by Project Farm. Pretty good tools. Okay, let me think about this for a minute. Grab the fire extinguisher. Should be a taper lock. There we go. Okay. Where we go from here, I have no idea. I don't think that did us any good. Good God. What was going on here? I tried being a nice guy. I'm not getting anywhere. All right, what do we need? Heat, maybe? Nothing to it. So easy. Okay, I'm not exactly sure how to get this thing apart. I think we're gonna find something behind this seal that that's gonna help us. And it looks like a bunch of metal. There. And that little shim didn't survive. Yeah, we might be able to save it. Come on, Woods. Why you gotta be like that? There it is. Boy, that bearing looks real nice. Okay. Does that one turn? No. No, because I can see the cage is all melted. Oh boy, that one's gonna be nasty. Huh. Well, that was easy. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll certainly do it. It was in the process of forging itself into a new kind of bearing. We're in the middle of our biannual fly invasion. Let's start with the good. The housing, the snap ring, and the nut, I think, are okay. Everything else inside the gearbox is junk. The bearings and seals, that's pretty obvious. What I wasn't expecting were the gears. They got pretty chewed up. And this shaft also got kind of mangled underneath of the bearing race that was trying to forge itself into a solid lump. They're attached to the shafts. You got to replace this whole assembly, which is fine, but each one of these costs about $600. So total parts to fix this thing, $1,700. I've got about 3 hours in it. I figure it'd take another 3 hours to finish it. So we're going to be in the neighborhood of 23, maybe $2,400. I called the owner of this fine machine. He said if he took it to an auction, he'd be lucky to get $800 for it in working condition. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to fix it. And even if we wanted to fix it, this shaft is not available. There's no dealer stock, there's no factory stock. I looked on eBay, there's no used parts. This thing does not exist. So he suggested that we just scrap it, put the tools down, and back away, which is probably the smart thing to do. You gotta love farmers. They're very practical. When the old cow starts to limp, they don't call the vet, if you know what I mean. I'm thinking though that the lack of parts is actually an opportunity to do some kind of sketchy, shady repairs. You know, we can pull off a hatchet job here that we normally would have to feel pretty bad about, but because there's no parts, you know, what other option do we have? These gears are not hardened. I've checked them with the file, and based on the fact that they're welded, I'm gonna guess that they're weldable. So I'm thinking we might be able to do some kind of real intricate welding, shaping sort of thing on the teeth here and see if we can get it back to, you know, usable condition. If this thing gets used 10 hours a year, I'd be surprised. It's not going into commercial service. So I'm gonna see what I can do, and I've already ordered some bearings and seals and stuff, just aftermarket, and I think we can maybe bang this thing back into some kind of usable condition. If not, at least we can say we tried. Not very good. Helps if you set it to remote. Doesn't look too bad. We got a few hickeys here. I had the machine set up for stick welding, and I forgot to turn it back to using the remote so that you can use the foot pedal. So I was trying to do 100 amps as soon as you struck an arc, which is a little rambunctious. Well, that thing's pretty hard. Anyway, I'm gonna cut this back to a rough tooth shape, probably just with a file, because I don't really trust myself with any kind of power tool. But that's extremely boring to do and even more boring to watch, so I'll bring you back when it's done. That is awful close. I think it's close enough. It's probably the best we're gonna do with a Dremel tool and a gauge made from a popsicle stick. I would say the two we welded are at least as good as the other teeth, maybe actually a little better. But we got to triage because that took a whole lot of time, and there are a lot of ways this can still go catastrophically wrong. So I sandblasted this other gear, and hopefully you can see on the camera it is pretty severely pitted on the drive side and the coast side, and there's really nothing we can do about that. We're just gonna have to put it back together and kind of do one of these. Now, this is a pretty common problem from my experience. You think about how this thing sits in the gearbox. This gear is submerged in oil all the time, but this one, you know, it's probably only up to about here, and you know, it sits a lot. There's condensation, so you're going to get corrosion on the part of the gear that's exposed. The other factor too is that this is just a mild steel gear, or maybe medium carbon steel. If it was made from, you know, 4140 or 8630, it has a lot of, I don't know, chrome or whatever proprietary blend of 11 herbs and spices, and a lot of those alloys help keep the gear from corroding, and we don't have that in this case. Maybe we can fill it with sawdust or whatever used car salesman trick we can come up with. I think it'll work. The other problem too is where the bearing race spun on this shaft. It did kind of chew up that shoulder, so I just took the burr off the best I could. Hopefully it hasn't worn into that shoulder too much, because that will cause the gear to drop down and we won't have good engagement. But we're not really going to know until we get it put back together. So let's start doing that. Come on, don't be like that. This thing uses standard Timken roller bearing sets. Well, that's kind of chewy. Which is an old bearing standard that goes back at least 100 years. It's a delightful mix of inches and millimeters. For example, this is a set 45, which has an inside diameter of 1.625 inch and 5/8, and an outside diameter of 75 millimeters. Don't ask me why. This one, which is a set 5, I think the outside is 1 9/16, which is extremely close to 65 millimeters, like within 1/1000th or two. So that gets very confusing. Anyway, let's start putting stuff back together. If you're installing a bearing and you don't have the right installation tool, which is 99% of the time, I prefer to use a steel punch rather than a brass punch. Because the brass punch likes to flake off, and you get these little brass flakes in your bearings and your gears. Can't get the things out no matter what you do. So this punch is hard, but it's nowhere near as hard as that bearing race. So there's no way you're going to hurt it. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure you could hurt it if you really tried. Tell you what, somebody at the Woods company takes press fits very seriously. We haven't really changed anything, so I think the same shims should go back in. Not quite gonna do it. Backlash feels good. It's a little tight. Oh boy. Looks like right there, there's a little bit of a high spot. I'm thinking I can just reach down in there with my little Dremel tool and take care of that without pulling the whole gearbox back apart. Good enough. I'm not too crazy about this lower seal. It seals onto the nut, which is fine, but then you also have to seal the nut to the shaft. And the way they do that is with an O-ring, and it just kind of jams down into that radius on the bearing. The problem is there's nothing on the inside for it to seal to. It's trying to seal up against the thread, and that's not going to work. It's basically like having a built-in leak. I don't understand why they made it this way. If they would have just extended that shoulder that the bearing sits on about, a couple more millimeters, it would have a nice smooth surface to seal against. But I don't see how it can possibly work the way that it is. I'm guessing that's why we're in the situation that we're in. All the oil leaked out that, past that O-ring. Well, that, and they never checked the oil, but that's besides the point. So I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm just kind of guessing at the size of this O-ring too. This is a 3/32. I think that's right. I did also buy 1/8 inch, so we could try the bigger one. I think what I'm gonna do is put some anaerobic sealer on the face of the bearing and then also on the thread, and just try to give us a little extra seal, because I don't like that. That is a flawed design in my opinion, but we're kind of stuck with it. So let me grab some different chemicals here and we'll see what we can do. Well, pro tip, if you want to record, you do have to hit the record button. Wonder how much of that I didn't record. In case I didn't record it, I put a bunch of anaerobic sealer around that O-ring, a little bit on the threads, and then I punched in the seal, and now I've got to go further with the seal, and I don't have the right size driver because it's still quite a ways away. It's part of an old hydraulic cylinder, I think. Put a little more on here just for fun. Not sure how tight to tighten that. So that's tight. Typically want a little bit of end play on a tapered roller bearing, so I'm going to back it off just a smidge. Like so. And wouldn't you know, that's pretty darn close to where it was before. So I'm happy with that. According to the parts breakdown, there is no gasket. We're going to use some RTV. Today's flavor is black. Man, I'm shaking like a leaf. Sucks getting old. I found out the other day I can't really throw a ball anymore. Apparently my shoulder is so jacked up that whatever range of motion you need for throwing balls, I no longer have. Kind of a bummer. One last sanity check. Looks fine to me. Turns out I have no idea where the bolts are. I think this cover might have been off when I got the mower, so I'm not even sure I have them. Anyway, this is the dipstick / vent, and it's supposed to have a seal, so I'm just going to put an O-ring on it. It's what it had before. It was just all kind of crusty. There we go. I gotta check the orientation too. This might be in the wrong spot. I really thought I had every kind of grease fitting known to man, but joke's on me. Turns out there's an M8 by 1.0 metric threaded grease fitting. Couldn't find a angled one. I had to get this stubby straight one, but I think it'll work just fine. How is it not 10 millimeter? Oh my God. Is it 3/8? Close enough. We gotta finish this project. I'm running out of patience. Say hi.
Hi. Shouldn't be scraping that.
I should have saved it for you.
You're too busy going for a joyride on the side-by-side. On this gorgeous day.
Can we show them the side-by-side?
Sounds like a lot more fun than what I was doing.
Poor Daddy.
That sounds lovely. Stop looking around. We gotta get this thing done. Oh, I should probably put some Loctite on those too, shouldn't I? Be kind of a bad day if the pulley fell off. It's a self-locking taper. That's why you have to use the jam screws to take it apart. But it can't hurt. These taper lock pulleys are great, but it is kind of tricky to line them up. You're basically trying to hit a moving target. It's pulling it up the taper as it tightens. So if you're trying to align two pulleys, you kind of got to start with it offset. You know what I mean. Anyway, that's close enough. It's just an old mower. How to do this without killing myself. All that oil leaking destroyed the gearbox, but it did a pretty good job of preserving the top of the deck. There it is. Okay. I really wish I would have noticed that the middle spindle grease fitting was broken off while I had this cover taken off. Would have made things a whole lot easier. Now, not gonna work. Ooh. I don't know, that's not feeling too good. Come on, little buddy. That's not what we wanted to happen. God dang it, I don't want to take that thing back apart. I just don't want to. I'm gonna have to though. Well, actually, that's not even gonna help me. So I still can't reach it. Stand by. I'm gonna go shed some tears and see if any hot ideas pop up. Get away from these flies for a minute. What am I doing wrong here? Somebody tell me. Working on a bunch of broken junk is what I'm doing wrong. I mean, it looks a little bit like a thread. I think this tap is going to make the ultimate sacrifice. I'm just going to grind the end off of it, and then we'll be able to go a little deeper. Stand by. A smarter person probably would have actually tried the mower. Made sure it wasn't a boat anchor before spending an hour trying to fix a broken grease zerk. But here we are. Wait for it. That's it. That's a grease zerk. Let's see if it'll take grease. Cool. Done. We got another problem that I probably should have checked on before we started this. It turns out this mower is a category 1 3-point hitch, and my tractor is a category 2. So the pins on my tractor are bigger and the arms are wider. So I think what I can do is take out these blocks that kind of keep the arms from moving around. Take out this side. Looks like I get quite a bit of movement. So hopefully that's all it takes. I'm pretty sure he uses this on a category 2 tractor, so I'll have to see how he does it. Old tractor's kind of falling apart on me. It's leaking everything from everywhere. The sediment bowl is leaking fuel. You see that there's oil coming out of the shifter boot. Don't know what that's all about. Lots of oil here. Now this rim's starting to leak. Fluid's leaking out of there. It's got a great big leak on this shaft that goes through where the 3-point arms pivot. That's part of the draft control mechanism. That'll be fun to fix. It works. I don't know what else to say. It's not a great weed mower. This is more of a finish mower, but it plowed through that ragweed without too much trouble. It's a little rough around the edges. It definitely has a rumble, and what we did, it may not last very long. I'm not going to pretend that it's good, because it's not. But for what I want to do, it's probably good enough. Thanks for watching. I'd say the most challenging part of this job is trying to find a way to justify it. I used to cut my weeds with that killing machine trimmer, the one with the blade. I got it for free. I fixed it basically for free in a couple hours, and I can cut all my weeds in about 2 hours. The mower, let's say the scrap value is $100. I spent about $200 on the bearings and seals, and then I plowed in at least 20 hours. And I figure by the time I get it hooked up and working, it's probably still going to take me an hour to cut the weeds. So, after about 25 years, we should be in the black, just about the time I'm eligible for Social Security. I guess it's a worthwhile academic exercise, but I'm starting to think these farmers are pretty smart. This is a grain trailer made by Donahue. So it's gooseneck. Hook it up to your pickup truck, fill it up full of grain, and then it's got an electric pump and it's supposed to dump. But the pump part doesn't work. So it turns, but all I get out of it is that milky goodness there. So they had this thing rebuilt. It's the jack. He called it a cylinder, but I think it's actually a hydraulic motor that turns a screw to move the jack up and down. I guess it was leaking, so they took it to a hydraulic shop. They resealed it. They put it back on, and it has not worked at all since then. I don't know how long it was apart. Probably quite a while, if I know farmers. Like probably almost a year. The hydraulic system is the same as what you'd find on a snowplow, except it's got this big reservoir. Anyway, I figured simplest things first. I want to check the pickup and make sure there's not a screen that's clogged. So I went ahead and drained the oil. There's no drain plug. I just sucked it out with the fluid extractor. And what I found inside was that right there is the top of the pump. And that's the pickup screen. Do you see all that white fluffy goodness in there? I don't know what that is. If I had to guess, I would say that's probably some kind of corn dust that has over time accumulated inside the hydraulic tank, and it is caked in there. I don't know how we're gonna get it out. So it's kind of weird that the valve block and the pump, they both socket into the reservoir. There must be a big O-ring here that seals them. I'm gonna go ahead and say, there's your problem right there. That is some lovely stuff. Really lovely stuff. And the whole tank is full of it. So now I get to figure out how to fish all that out of there. What a glamorous job. I flushed it with diesel, sucked it with the extractor, and then wiped up the rest. So theoretically, that should now work. Look at that. There we go. I am going to order a different cap or vent. I believe there's supposed to be a filter element in here, and it is gone, which is, I guess, how that stuff got in there. I don't know. That's a lot of contamination to go through that small passage. I wonder if maybe that thing fell off at one time, or maybe there's more to the story that I'm not being told. It's usually the case. Doesn't matter, I guess. Guess what, Pop? Yeah. My calibrated eye is broken. That is not a 1/2-inch pipe thread. It's a 3/4 inch pipe thread. So this fancy new 40 micron filtering vent cap that I bought is gonna need an adapter.
Great.
Bummer, huh, kiddo?
I'm just gonna scoop it.
There you go.
Really scoop it. I think that would be easier than pushing it.
We get a lot of mileage out of these Chinese rip-off Lego Technics.
This isn't a rip-off one.
You keep thinking that, kiddo.